Welcome to the Twinkle Talks EYFS podcast. Working in the early years is busy, funny, messy, and exhausting. Join me, Shana, and the rest of the Twinkle EYFS team as we talk honestly about our experiences as practitioners, teachers, and professional nappy changers. Whether you're listening to increase your CPD hours or catching up on our antics whilst driving home from work, Twinkle EYFS will share everything you need to know about all things early years.
Hello, lovely listeners. It's Shana here from the Twinkle Talks EYFS team. And today we've got a really cool episode with the lovely Julia and Louise from our CPD Early Years team talking about risky play. Now, as we are talking about risky play today, we thought we would do a little segment before that asking you about what you would consider risky or what you are afraid of. So we're going to kick off today's episode with our Twinkle Talks top 3 fears of early years practitioners. Let's have a listen. Okay, so 157 of you took part in this vote, and it's quite interesting. We had a couple of different options. Spiders, a lot of people said, heights, afraid of the dark, snakes, rodents, moths. I know someone in my family who's terrified of moths, so I get that one. Clowns, honestly, they are my worst fear. Like, I have nightmares about clowns. I don't understand why they're at kids' parties. They are terrifying. And other things like the sea and dogs and things like that. So, according to you guys, the top fear of early years practitioners is spiders, with a massive 33% of the vote. I am with you. I'm sorry. If it's got more than 4 legs, it's too many. It's too many. Why do you need more than 4 legs? No. And you know that time of year when you're just sitting in your living room, like watching telly, and then all of a sudden a monster darts out from under the sofa? Yeah, no, not having it. Nope, I'm with you on that one. We actually had joint second place as well. So in 19% each of the vote, your second place top fears are heights and snakes. Now, I didn't used to be afraid of heights until I got COVID, and then as a symptom after that of long COVID, I had vertigo for about 18 months. Yeah, no, that is real. Like, I could not feel my legs. It's the worst feeling. No. And snakes, totally, again, I'm totally with you. Like, they are murderers, guys. They are terrifying. No, isn't there like that movie where like it comes out of the toilet or something? I'm just terrified that a snake's gonna come up and bite my bum. No, I'm not having it. No, I'm with you. And then in third place is rodents with 12%. See, I'm conflicted. I think mice and rats are quite cute. I mean it, like, especially living in the country, and I live right next to a farm, and so we get a lot of country mice. I think they're quite cute. Am I the only one? Maybe. I'm most surprised that clowns have only got 5% of the vote. Guys, clowns are did I not make myself clear? Clowns, horrendous. No, I can't do it. No. But hey, it's not me in charge of this vote, it's yours. So those are your top 3 fears of early years practitioners. Thanks for taking part. So now on to the main part of the show. We're going to be chatting to Julia and Louise about what risky play is and how we can develop it in our settings. Hello, the lovely Julia and Louise. Or should I say Louise and Julia? Usually I start with Julia first. I'm sorry.
I thought it was like Lulia.
Lulia. Oh, God.
It's our official nickname.
Your official I'm sorry.
So has it gone out of turn?
It's just not that catchy, guys. It's fine.
Whoa, we've got t-shirts, we've got bags, we've got mugs. I'm not sure what you're talking about.
I didn't get any of this.
They're in the post.
Oh, I see. You've made like a proper little group going on here. Yeah, I see how it is. Well, hi, Lulia. Lovely to have you back. Today, we are talking about something very interesting to me. It's risky play. I know. I love a bit of risk. in early years, but I think a lot of us, I think it's quite polarized. It's either you do it a lot in an earlier setting or you're too scared to do it.
Yeah, it's tricky.
Right? And there's that balance. And I think that's the same for me in terms of what the balance is of, you know, not letting them run wild, but also letting them run wild, you know? So I'm glad you're here, especially as the weather is getting much better. And I think risky play outdoors is going to be more prevalent, which will be exciting. So first things first, what is defined as risky play?
So risky play is seen to be an exciting activity that involves a physical risk and provides an opportunity to kind of test limits and explore children's boundaries, such as climbing, balancing, or swinging, for example. That's a couple of examples of risky play. But it's really just allowing children to understand and kind of explore that risk, because that's really important for them in later life.
Why is outdoor physical risky play so important?
It's so important for children because it's a chance for them to kind of challenge themselves and also judge a situation and then consider their actions. Because if we don't let them have those opportunities, they've always been told what to do or what they can and can't do, then it means that when they are by themselves, that's quite a surprise and they don't know how to navigate those moments. So it's really important for them to kind of learn their limits and learn how to keep themselves safe. Actually, that's what risky play helps to do.
Because like you say, being kind of left to their own devices, are they able to identify and manage and understand boundaries as well, I guess? But that's like social and emotional skills, I suppose, as well, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. And that's something that they learn in lots of different ways. Like you say, you know, if their friend is being hurtful towards them, that's something that they'll learn to develop. Like, how should friends act? How should we learn to be with each other? And it's the same for physical risks. You know, if they see that something is risky, maybe, you know, they'll think about conversations they've had with adults and how to stay safe if they're climbing a tree, for example. And it all helps them later down the line navigate risk better. Because as an adult, if you've never experienced risk, then at one point you might be kind of let out of that, you know, bubble and then almost be crazy risky and try absolutely everything and then hurt yourself because you've never been able to experience that. So that's what we're trying to avoid as well.
And I guess, like you say, we can't bubble wrap children. Like, there are risks in life, and it's just like you say, getting them to recognize it and manage it themselves, which is what we all hope to do by the time we're adults, right?
Definitely.
Okay, so what other skills do children sort of gain by learning and practicing risky play?
I mean, there are huge benefits for risky play and for young children. Well, not just young children, for children and adults actually. So some of them could be feeling more confident, willing to take risks, and having a positive attitude about testing their own boundaries. I think Julia just mentioned that earlier on. Perseverance, resilience, feeling proud and satisfied that they've achieved something that they thought was maybe a bit tricky and that they've achieved it. So it's a huge sense of accomplishment in doing something that's a bit tricky. And then you've got sort of the problem solving aspects and communicating with others, to collaborate and negotiate around a problem. And then there's huge benefits for gross motor skills and in particular things like the development of proprioception. That's when it lets us know our body becomes aware of where they are and how they move and the strength of your muscles. So there's huge benefits. And obviously there's all wrapped into all of that is the engagement of your whole body and the sensory feedback that you get from taking risks and exploring.
I was going to say, there's not really anything that's not a benefit, let's be honest. Like, I was trying to think of all of the areas of learning, like you were talking. PSED, like you say, you're building relationships with people, because if you are going to problem solve or work as a team in whatever, you are going to have to learn how to get on with your peers and how to figure stuff out. Communication and language, obviously, I think is a massive one, because in order to solve problems or take certain risks, A, you need understanding, don't you? And B, you need to be able to communicate things if you're doing it with other people. Otherwise, it won't work. Physical, very obvious one. But I also was thinking as well, I think it's a really interesting way from the cohorts I've taught. It's something that boys are drawn to, maybe because of society or, you know, however And that's how they engage with like maths or understanding of the world and things like that. I was one of the girls that loved it and still do. So it's nice to see maybe girls are coming more into it now as well, do you think? Or
I mean, I do think that's the response sometimes of adults surrounding girls, because I've seen the same thing with some parents when I've been in settings, it's kind of like, oh, don't ruin your clothes, you look nice today, and be careful and things like that. Versus, when you're with them and you put your waterproofs on, it's like, it's all right. Like, it's okay to get messy and dirty. And I think it just sometimes depends on what you've heard from things, because sometimes naturally, just in society, boys are encouraged to be a bit more rough, and it's okay for them, and you get out there and you get messy, and girls sometimes like, oh no, you sit there neatly and tidily and don't get messy. So I think sometimes that comes across in some situations, and that's really nice for us to encourage all children to take those little risks, because then, like we say, it's preparing them later for life as well, because there's always going to be risks, and it's important for us to navigate them as children.
And this is it as well. It's like, it's also, I think, something really important to be aware of as practitioners is that awareness of your cohort and what children are being consciously or subconsciously told, don't get messy. Because then risky play, however you do it, maybe in your outside area or forest schooling or, however you do it, that might be their opportunity to let go and be free, and like that's always something really important that it's very prominent at schools, isn't it? Or school settings or reception classes or formal classes, that everything must be tidy. And I'm one of these people, all right, because me and cleanliness, it needs to happen. Okay, I don't like sensory play. I don't do it. I know I'm an early years teacher, and
whereas I love it.
I know.
It's so much fun.
Like getting touch. No, it's
Not
just
for
for me. It's not for me. However, going out gardening and getting my hands in the mud and the soil, fine. So I think it's also about, in those risky plays, exploring those different senses and textures and actually finding out what I don't want to say tolerate, but kind of tolerate. Enjoy. All right, let's say enjoy. Yeah. But it's that whole, that it doesn't really feel like formal schooling, because in school, in classrooms, you've got to, present everything nicely and tidy away afterwards and all of this. And in risky play, in outdoor play or, forest schooling, it's more be at one with the mess and, and explore it rather than be afraid of it. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. And the other thing, as you were talking, I was thinking, I think it's probably risky play, and the importance of it now is so valuable, because if you look back historically of children's play, when my parents were younger and their parents, when they were at home and off to play, they were out for hours. They were being risky. They were challenging their boundaries. They were making rope swings that adults weren't necessarily around as much. And gradually over time, children's footprint, I suppose, and distance of going away from adults and being free, like you said, is much, much smaller now. So actually the involvement of what you can do in schools and settings to allow children those experiences of risky play is so important, because worlds are getting smaller for children.
I really didn't think about that. You're so right. And especially with like technology and that as well, isn't it? It's a lot of children, whether they choose to or it's just because of their environment, they're usually at home watching television or playing with toys or on a tablet and playing games. And that, like you say, a couple of decades ago, that just wasn't a thing. So it's really kind of, our social environment has really changed, and that's really affected how we develop, isn't it? Risky play is somehow not our responsibility, but if we have that opportunity in schools, let's do it, because it's really important.
Really important.
So the next bit then, risk, hazard and challenge. What's this all about? What is this?
So as we've obviously been looking into risky play a little bit more in depth, there are 3 words that really struck in our minds, really. And obviously people will have heard the term risk because they complete risk assessments in school.
Oh, yes, we do.
And so it's about understanding what each of those terms means. So risk is the possibility or likelihood that something bad could happen. So it's the possibility that something bad will happen that could cause danger or harm.
Or death. Is it also death?
So dramatic.
I know, it's so
Or
dramatic.
death.
I'm literally just thinking about our risk assessments, because that's what it says, isn't it? It's like there's a possibility, when you do the risk assessment and it's like a 1, 2 or 3 or something, and it's like possible risk of injury or death.
You were being the drama in all caps, or death.
So yes, so you have to consider it. And really, I would be saying, if that is the possibility, and it's a high possibility, you probably wouldn't be advocating that a child would be doing that at
Yeah,
all.
no skydives without the rope in a nursery class. Yeah, that sounds all right.
No, I don't think that might not be suitable.
I think that's not suitable for anyone to skydive.
Yeah. So risk is the possibility anyway.
Right.
Then the hazard is something that can cause harm physically or psychologically. So that is things like fire, using a sharp tool, the hazard of what could happen to you if you were to use something like a fire, or if you were climbing, what could be the hazard that's related to that. And then the last term is a challenge. So a challenge is something that can be demanding and tests your ability. So those were the 3 definitions that we were looking at, which then leads into supporting you as a practitioner, maybe when you're writing your risk assessments.
Right. So what would you say is an example of a challenge then?
Well, so a challenge would be anything that would test you. So that could be climbing a bit higher, maybe.
Ah, okay.
It could be
like walking down. I know it sounds silly, but like walking downstairs, like that's a challenge because it's something that they'll do or they can do, but maybe there's more stairs or there's steeper stairs. So it's just that extra bit of we need to work harder.
Yeah,
if it's just pushing them a little bit more, stretching them in a comfortable place, basically.
Right.
So if they have learned to go down, like you say, 3 steps, then 6 steps would be a bigger challenge for them, or steeper steps would be a bigger challenge.
Or when they're like they're balancing and they're walking across a makeshift bridge with the pallets and the beams and all of that, and they just use a thinner beam. Is that would be the challenge?
Yeah.
Right. So it's like an adjustment to something they're already doing, but just pushing them a bit more.
Yeah,
exactly. It's still like testing their ability, and it's still demanding in a space that they haven't done it before, and it's still something that's still interesting for them. Because if they keep doing, those repeated behaviors, which are comfortable for them and they feel more confident, then that challenge is, for example, you're changing that resource. You're thinking, oh, look, here's a small, thinner beam. Would you like to try this? And that's a bit of a challenge.
Right. Okay, so I feel like risky play, outdoor play, all this stuff, it obviously isn't something new to us. I feel like as practitioners, as children ourselves, we are aware of, this style of teaching, this style of learning. So have you got any big hitters, big names out there that have talked about this?
So one of the people that we were looking at was someone called Tim Gill. And I'm going to relate this back to the risk element in a moment. Tim Gill, it was one of the researchers into the benefits of risky play, and he co-created a risk-benefit assessment.
Oh.
And this is quite widely used with people that work in the outdoors with young children. And what he said was that children need to experience uncertainty because they need to adapt and learn from their mistakes. And when you're outdoors, it does enable you to become more risky through play, and that children need that time and that space to feel in control and develop their sense of challenge and how they would adapt to that. So he co-created something called a risk-benefit assessment. It's very similar to a risk assessment, which people will be familiar with in settings. But the main difference of a risk-benefit assessment is that it's a way of balancing the risks and the benefits of activities and experiences outside. So what you would be doing when you're creating a risk benefit is you would start with looking at all the benefits of an activity, for example, running outside or climbing or playing outdoor games in a woodland. So you'd be looking at the benefits of that activity for the child. And then once you've sort of thought of all the benefits, you then weigh up what risks and hazards are involved in that and the potential for the risks to cause harm. So that's the main difference, really. It's including the benefits in the risk assessment so that it's not just focused on all the hazards and the potential to cause harm, that you are bringing in, okay, yes, that is the potential, but there are so many benefits as well to doing that activity with young children.
See, I think that's really a really important distinction, because I think from my experience, I didn't even know a risk benefit assessment existed. If I'd have had that, I think I would have felt much more confident at doing risky play, because like you say, risk assessments are very focused on doom and gloom and very dramatic and yes, but what if this happens? What are you going to do about it? And of course, that's really important. You should always think about those risks and how we're going to manage them. But if it's just that, it kind of goes, oh, is it worth it? Oh, no, we found another risk. Oh, but what? And it just makes you doubt yourself. But if you have those benefits next to them, say, for example, I don't know, building a fire and then having marshmallows on the fire, as an activity. Yes, okay, you've got to think about, obviously, the fire itself as a hazard. We've got to think about splinters in wood. I know it doesn't sound like a hazard, but it's a hazard. Splinters are a pain. And like you say, managing those things. But then on the flip side of that, what are they learning? Oh, they're learning about how to safely be around a fire. They're learning actual real survival skills about how to build a fire, which is amazing. They're making their own food with melted marshmallows. That's great. I love that. They're having it's a social thing. It's, it also, I can imagine, you're learning a lot about science and about wood, like why does it burn, what different kinds of materials. And there's just, when you put them both together, you're like, oh yeah, this is why we do this. So it's not as scary. And I think that's really nice. Is there anywhere we can find this risk benefit assessment, Lou?
Well, we have created one, and it is on site. So it has the risk benefit form, and then alongside that, it's got a breakdown of guidance on how to complete one.
That is totally going in the episode description. I love it, because then it's just, we can use it straight away. I think I might do one for my garden. Ooh. I know. You see, gardening, Lou's face is like, no, Shanna, that's not what it's for.
No, do you know what I was going to say is actually one of the, I think, I read an article somewhere which said the majority of accidents actually happen in the garden.
I can totally believe that. I have fallen over several times.
Yeah, I was going to say I've slipped and fallen, and you're quite often carrying something, aren't you, on an allotment, and then you slip and then you fall and you try and correct yourself. Gardening is risky.
Yeah, but guys, it's so fun. And
I know, but you do have to think of all the benefits.
Exactly. We're not saying it's a bad thing that it's risky.
It's risky, but we're going to do it anyway because, like you say, there's a risk-benefit assessment that I could do. Funny story, right? I fell over the other day because it's springtime, right? So I'm getting, and I love planting fruit and veg, and I've got like 150 pots around my house. So I was getting my tomato seeds ready because I've got like 10 varieties of tomatoes, right? I know, it's ridiculous. So then I had about 40 pots of tomatoes, one in one seed tray, one in the other. And I was carrying one seed tray. I was feeling mega proud of myself because I'd got all these seeds ready. And I was like, this is going to be a great harvest this season. Stacked it. All the seeds fell out. All over the floor. And I literally went, no! My babies! I was gutted, absolutely gutted, and I was like scooping them in, like no, and they were different varieties, but they were all mixed up because I couldn't figure. And I was like,
the tomato surprise.
Yeah, but you know what's really funny? I've got 21 tomato seedlings now, and guess which seed tray they came out of? The one that I tripped over, or the one that I didn't?
The tripped over.
The one you tripped over.
Yeah. Yes, they are flourishing.
That's nature for you.
Yeah.
They needed their roots being tickled a bit.
Roots being tickled. Do you know what? Sometimes I need my roots tickled as well. I feel it. But it's like one of those, I don't know, real life metaphors to risky play, isn't it? Like, yes, there was a risk I fell over, I got a bruise, never mind. But look how flourishing they are. Yeah. And the other seed tray that I didn't fall over with, they're not doing nothing right now.
Oh, yeah. Well, maybe you need to recreate your falling over safely.
Shall I?
Yes. Just give it a little shake.
A little shake.
A little
All right. Shall I just really slow motion fall over and see what
Yeah,
happens?
exactly.
And then
Yeah.
put loads of mats on the floor.
Maybe they're helping each other. They're like, oh,
Maybe.
you're a different type of tomato.
I mean, I'll let you know what happens.
Well, we're
'cause-
coming to yours for salsa, clearly.
Yes, you are. Salsa, the dance, and the food. Let's do it.
Exactly. We're salsaing while eating some.
I love it. Right, we're going off topic. I apologise, but I enjoy risky play and gardening very much. Theories. Talk to me about theories. Where did this come from? Why? Who's some big people in there?
Well, as we talked about, risky play is more new language than anything. We've always done it.
Right.
It's more something that as years go on, kind of things change, and then we bring up new language to remind us of what's important. So one of the important people to know is also Ellen Sandseter. So she's a professor of early childhood education in Norway. And actually for her PhD doctoral thesis, she did Scary Funny and all about risky play. So it was really interesting because basically she just found out that there were 6 categories of risky play.
Oh,
Yeah, that really helps, I think, practitioners and parents think about risky play in different ways.
yeah.
So great heights, such as climbing, jumping, balancing, hanging and swinging. High speed, so that can also be swinging fast or sliding, rolling down hills, sledging, cycling, those sort of things.
Roundabouts.
Yeah, roundabouts.
Ugh,
Yeah.
don't make me vomit.
Roundabouts is a great word. Dangerous tools, so cutting tools such as knives, and also, things that people have been talking about, woodworking tools.
I love
also,
woodwork.
if you're working with ropes, those are things that you need to be careful of. Dangerous elements, we've talked about fire, but also deep water, or even, pits and things that can be outside in nature and you have to be careful of.
Like spiky plants and that as well. Does that
Yeah,
count? Right.
I mean, it
Or
all
poisonous.
comes into it. Yeah. And
Okay.
that's really important to be aware of. Rough and tumble as well, like wrestling, chasing, fencing. You see a lot of play fighting. Kids enjoy doing that. And then disappearing or getting lost. So playing alone in unfamiliar places or exploring and wandering alone. So it's really interesting to think about those different ways of seeing risky play.
Yeah, that's actually made it a lot more clearer in my mind, I have to say. I didn't even think about speed. I don't know why, but of course it is. I always remember in nursery we had like in our outdoor space there was kind of like a semicircle. So the children, there was a path that they could run. And they'd used to play chasing games and things. And there was always one kid who was incredibly fast and loved it, but they weren't able to manage their own speed. So I don't want to say for them, or maybe for the other people that were playing with them, running was risky play because it was like, you don't know if you're going to get knocked down or not.
Exactly.
So we were trying to teach him, okay, it's amazing that you're fast. However, nobody else is as fast as you, so you need to manage the obstacles. It's not their job, it's your job.
Exactly.
So even running can be risky play.
Yeah, and what great coordination that they have to develop, because I think like you say, there's always one that's faster than another, and it's fine when you're by yourself running around, but when you put in a few more children into that mix, then it does get a lot riskier.
And actually, I think it's really good to define them separately, because you might make the assumption that if a child is great at dealing with heights, you think, oh, they've got no fear, their risk assessment, their safety is fine. However, that's only one element of the risks. Actually, they might be afraid of getting lost, because a child who might look so confident and can climb all those trees and can, jump in that water or, whatever it is, if they're lost, that's it. And that's where they struggle and they can't look after themselves. So I think that's actually a really good way to get to know our children more in terms of what are the different types of risky play and behaviours and how they feel in different sections. Is that right?
I definitely think so. And how they lead to fears in adults sometimes as well. Because you might be thinking, why are you scared of heights? And then sometimes you think back to a childhood experience of when you were too high and maybe you weren't ready for it, or you didn't feel safe in that scenario. So it's really useful to think about the different areas to help children later.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to add that obviously part of this as well is that some children, because they don't have fear of some of those elements, particularly I'm thinking when you were mentioning the getting lost, they wander and 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 they have no sense of stopping. So, and that's part of our role as practitioners is to support them and learn about boundaries, because that is a concern, isn't it? The
Yeah.
other side of it is not being fearful, but actually not having the awareness that actually I need to stop because I need to keep myself safe.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. You're so right. It's not just about what we're afraid of. It's also about, well, actually, do we understand the risks, and that other side of the coin of understanding why some people might be afraid of it and why maybe perhaps you should be. Like if a child's not afraid of fire, you're like, do you understand why though? Like, do you understand the dangers and how to keep yourself safe? So yeah, there's like two sides to that coin. I like that. So you were touching on that already, Lou. As practitioners, what can we do in our classrooms, in our settings, in our forest schools to develop that love and acceptance of risky play and put that into our practice, but also manage and support our children in doing it as well?
Well, there's quite a few different things that as adults that we can do. I think one of the main ones to begin with is feeling comfortable in yourself as a practitioner and with focusing on the benefits of risky play and being positive about it. And I think in a setting when you're doing your risk benefit assessment or your risk assessment, whatever you choose to do, and you're thinking about risky play is what you all feel comfortable with,
Mm.
because everybody's got a different level of comfort. So some people might feel comfortable with children climbing really, really, really high, and other practitioners might not feel that comfortable. So it's about feeling comfortable, and as a team, you'll be then able to positively support with their risky play and being supportive with the language that you use as well. And I think Julia's going to touch on that in a little moment, a bit more in detail. So then sort of weighing up the risk and the benefits around the different risky play that children are participating in. So trying to enable them to do things and not prevent them. And that's going back to the comfort as well, and agreeing with what you as a team feel comfortable with. So you've got to consider the likelihood of serious incidents and injuries, but also what the benefits would be from children participating in them. And I guess if something is really risky and is going to cause hazards and you can't find ways to control it, to put control measures in to make it less likely that things would happen, you would choose not to do them.
Yeah.
So yes, so being supportive of it, being positive about it, assessing it and weighing it up and completing your risk benefits as a team, and enabling children to feel like they can do something and that they can take that challenge and take that risk, in order for children to develop that trust with you as adults as well, that they feel trusted and capable of doing something. And lastly, I would say giving children time where they can play and they explore, and giving them freedom to be active in the outdoors. Because quite often injuries and incidents tend to happen when children feel really rushed and they've got to do it quickly before I'm going to be asked to go and do something else. So actually giving them time and space and that sense of freedom will definitely help to lower risks, I think, and hazards, because they've got the time to explore. And then lastly, I think I just said, and lastly, but one more thing, because it's just popped into my mind, is obviously reflecting on your environment and thinking about how your environment supports risky play. Does it support risky play? Do children have new areas that they can go and explore and hide? And does the environment allow for children to move quickly around it? Can children climb in the environment? Can they jump off so really thinking about what does your environment offer children for risky play.
Because research has found as well, just to add on to that if there aren't any ways for children to take risk, they will find ways. So better that you think about safer risky opportunities than they find objects to be risky with that you might not expect, and that'd be actually more dangerous in that case.
That's a really interesting point, isn't it? Risk is everywhere, and children are curious, and they don't know what's risky and what isn't. They're just naturally curious about everything, and they might accidentally pick something up and put it in their mouth without realizing it's a poisonous berry or whatever. because they don't have that awareness, but they are going to still try and find out because that's just what kids do. They're curious, and that's good. We want to promote that. But like you say, it's about doing it in a safe way, and that's what Risky Play provides. I love that. That's really interesting.
Just out of interest, touching on your point there about plants, we've been talking about plants in outdoor areas quite a bit during this. And I think one of the key things for that is that you don't remove everything, but you as practitioners all need to be very aware of what plants and seasonal plants that pop up and go away, and you need to develop systems and procedures in your setting to enable children to learn about the different plants. So if it is a plant that you don't want them to touch, how could you make that environment safe rather than just removing everything? I mean, sometimes you will have to remove things if you can't put control measures in. But for example, putting a cone beside it, or putting a little sign that you've made, or waving to the mushrooms or the fungi and saying, hi, but I'm not going to touch you, but we'll just all say hello to it. So you're showing children that there is something there that they can't touch, that you don't want them to touch. But if you remove them all, then when they're away from your setting, they won't
have a clue what to do.
Yeah.
They won't know. So yeah, that's where your control measures and how you help to teach and to enable children to then manage their risks later on for themselves.
I think we're picking up on some really interesting points here, because especially when we were thinking about Risky Play and the role of the practitioner, instantly my mind was, right, you have to do this, you have to get rid of this, you have to make sure this doesn't happen. But that's actually only half the story. It's actually, well, no, don't get rid of everything if it's, not horrendous. But it's just controlling it and managing it in a way that is still safe. I think that's a really important point, because I don't want our listeners to go away thinking, oh my gosh, there's weeds in our back garden, we must get rid of them. It's actually not that at all, is it? It's about just identifying possible risks, possible hazards, possible challenges, making our children aware of them, and then just teaching them how to continue life around them.
Yeah, it's a learning opportunity, really, isn't it? It's like when I was younger, I learned very young about stinging nettles and how to recognize them, because they were everywhere around where we lived. And, if there was a scenario where I went to school and they just took them out, then I wouldn't have really understood what they look like and be able to identify them as well as when we did, because there would be a huge field of them actually next to where we used to play, and they were just saying, those are the sting nettles, and if you do ever get stung, this is how you find a dock leaf as well to rub on. And that's all just learning opportunities for the future to how to avoid risk in the first place if it's something you don't want to get hurt, and then what to do if you do as well. So it's helping children, like you say, just navigate the real world, actually.
Yeah, and I also think it's also about understanding things more. So when you were talking about the whole stinging nettle thing as well, bees came into my mind, because I feel like it's a common thing. Bees and wasps. I am terrified of wasps, I'm not going to lie. I used to be terrified of bees, but now I understand them more. I'm not at all, and actually I love bees, and I encourage bees to come into my garden. But like, if we ever had bees at nursery or in reception, watch the children scream, watch them run, watch them make a big guffaw about it. But that was just because either they'd seen someone else do it and that's what they thought we should do, or yes, perhaps one of them has had a bad experience and they have been stung, which is completely understandable. But that's only half the story. A bee is actually a really beautiful creature, and we need them to help pollinate plants, etc., etc. And we need to learn to appreciate bees. And it's not about, as soon as you have a bee in your garden, kill it, because I had to spend so much time teaching my children not to do that, because that was what they had been. That's what they thought was normal. It was actually about, well, no, let's just observe the bee from afar. It's a creature, so we need to respect its boundaries as well. That's why it stings. It doesn't sting for no reason. It's defending itself. So if we, stay back, we're absolutely fine. And actually, bees are really important, and it's a good thing that bees are here, because look, our plants over there, there's loads of flowers. Can you see them having some food? And they really understand how the world works around them as well. It's like, oh, actually, how something can be risky, but also in the right way, if used correctly and managed correctly, can actually be a massive benefit to everybody, right?
Definitely.
I mean, I think how you've just explained it really just shows the role of adults and practitioners in
Why, thank you.
in terms of how you respond to things, whether it's with creatures or plants or risky play. I mean, if you're in your setting and you've got some steps up to a climbing frame or something, and you always stand there, go,
Yes.
Exactly.
then children will become naturally fearful of it because they're seeing how you're responding to it. So yeah, I think the role that we can all play, holding that in yourself, being aware of what are the hazards and what are the risks, and then thinking, okay, let's work together to approach this in a more positive way rather than just seeing always the negative.
And I think that links nicely to the language that we use around risky play, because I think that's something that's really important for everyone to reflect on, and also think about what parents say as well, because children, like we have said, do mirror what they've heard around them, what adults have said. So if they're constantly hearing, be careful, be careful, be careful, they might actually start to feel a bit nervous when they're in those situations, and then start to look for an adult, and that actually can distract them from what they're doing. So often, if adults are talking a lot while children are trying to do risky play, it can be distracting and can actually cause those accidents. So it's something just to be really aware of how much you're talking to children and what you're saying. Because if you are concerned, what can be really useful is just to make sure that children are aware of the risks before they do it. And also you can role play with people, okay, if this child wanted to climb this tree, what would you say? Do you need to say anything? Is also something to consider. And you can comment, for example, wow, you're so high, that's really impressive. Where do you think your hand or foot is safe to put next if they're not sure? But you can always leave that space for them if they look like they're thinking, because sometimes silence is really hard when children are doing something that you're not necessarily you're concerned about, because it is something that you have to kind of almost get used to if you're not used to risky play. And then if they are starting to look for you, because sometimes they'll just be looking around themselves, they'll be looking for a safe place to put their hands or feet, and you can see that. But then if they're not sure, then they might turn to you and ask, and then that can be they're introducing you into their risky play. So it's something to just be careful of what you're saying and how often you're talking to children when they're doing it as well.
Silence is golden. That's what I like to say. Not too much though, because then that means they're in the food or something. That's why it's quiet.
Suspiciously.
Yeah, there's a suspicious quiet as well as suspicious silence as well as a golden silence. Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, cool. So we've talked a lot, and I feel like we've learned a lot. In terms of what our listeners are thinking, though, we've got a couple of questions. So we've talked about maybe children who have some fears in terms of different risky play, or we have children who aren't aware of or seem to have no fear at all. What about our risk-averse children, the children that just outright even refuse to engage with it for some reason? How do we support those children?
Well, I think it's really important to talk to the children and talk to their parents, because like we've said, they might have got that from their parents saying, no, don't do that, don't go there, don't climb that, and they might just be really anxious and nervous because of that and associating it with quite a lot of fear. So it's something to really involve the parents in, because it's natural for, to want their children to be safe. That's where it's coming from. It's coming from a good place. And so it's just trying to open up that conversation. And what we talked about in terms of the risk benefit assessment is something really valuable to share with parents, to show them what is the purpose. Because in their mind, they're like, why are you putting my child at risk? What is the point of this? They're just worried about them hurting themselves. But when you show them how important it is for their confidence, for their physical development, for them to navigate risk when they're not around, I think, that's really helpful for them to see the value. And then that will help support the child as well, because it's all about that kind of holistic understanding of the value of risk.
I also think that parents, they could give a really good insight into why a child is so afraid of something without any, obvious explanation. So for example, if you are going to forest school and there is a big fire in the middle ready for marshmallows, and without warning a child just is terrified, you think that's really unusual. If you go and talk to the parent, they could actually shed some light on maybe a really traumatic event in the child's life. And that could be really insightful and show you, oh, that's where that behavior's come from. Maybe this child isn't ready for this kind of risk yet. And I think parents give a really good insight to that because after all, they know their kids best. And that actually answers the next question as well about what about parents? Because like you say, we as practitioners, either we've listened to this podcast so we now know what risky play is all about, or we've had training and we understand the risk versus benefits, but parents won't have access to our learning. So how do we support parents understanding why risky play is needed and is safe for children to do?
Well, we did think that was really important, and we have actually created an adult information leaflet to share with parents, and that can really help them understand the value and its importance, and also start a conversation with them, because at the beginning they might feel a bit nervous or avoidant to talk about it, and just say, it's okay that we talk about these things, and it's really important that we do so that we can support children with them. And also, that language conversation is so, so important. Start to help them thinking about, what are you saying if they go anywhere near risks? What have you said in the past? What could you say instead? How could you feel like you're supporting them? Whether that be a conversation about, what is risky, and, how to help support children navigate that risk might help them feel more comfortable with their child doing that.
I always used to invite my parents in, because there was in one of the schools there was a forest school attached to the school, so we'd walk down, and quite often I'd always say, oh, come along, come with us, come see, come have fun, it's honestly really fun. come I know it sounds like we're doing crazy things, but it's really, and you'll see how we manage it and how it is
exactly
safe. And also I think observations are really good. A lot of settings will have online learning journeys where we can take photos and take videos. I think if you actually did that when they were in forest school or doing risky play and showing them, oh no, look, little Johnny finally tackled the climbing frame today after weeks of trying and found it really difficult, but now he understands where his hands go and he can do it by himself. Woo! And making some of our observations that we share with parents about risky play as well.
Yeah, definitely. Sharing those benefits and sharing the journey that they've been on is so, so valuable.
Love it. Okay, last question from our lovely listeners. We do all this work, right? We do all the work in terms of our learning environments, our classrooms, our settings, our outdoor learning environments in sort of promoting and supporting risky play. But how do we keep that going out of the settings?
Well, I think something, as well as sharing the value of risky play, is you can always talk about specifics. Because I think when it gets super general, parents will be like, I mean, what does that mean? Does it just mean, when they're going down this massive hill on a scooter, I just let them be? They don't know how to tackle those day-to-day situations and risks. And I think that's what's important, talking about specific activities and, how you could navigate those, and also just opening up that conversation of, maybe inviting parents in to just chat about risky play would be really, really valuable, because them saying, I'm cooking at home and, they want to help, and I just don't want them anywhere near the knives or, the oven or things like that. And just kind of having those conversations about how can we navigate these risks outside of the setting.
I also think it's something to be mindful of, that we don't want to put pressure on children to take risks when they're not quite ready to take them. So it's about building them up slowly and at their level and at the rate at which they feel comfortable with. So that's where sort of the fine tuning of where you can support and when you step away is really important. Because if children feel pressure to climb up the big inflatable slide that's really, really high, and they're not quite ready, but they feel like they should be doing it because they've been told to do it, then actually it becomes not an adventurous and thrilling activity anymore. It becomes quite traumatic.
Yeah.
So I think it's taking cues from the child and then putting measures in to support them to feel like they can take more risks.
That's a really good point.
I think that's so important. And also breaking down the steps like you were talking about, because for example, because we see lots of things on social media and we sometimes see it near the end of the journey. So for example, a parent had their 2-year-old cutting a banana and they were using a real knife, and everyone was like, how can they be using a real knife? And she said, well, you haven't seen the journey that we've been on. You know, they've always wanted to help me, and you know, we started with those wooden ones which don't, you know, can't cause any damage and things like that. And so it's a real like practice, and they built up very slowly and where the child was at to a point where they felt safe with that risk. And so like even just breaking down little steps of things that they might do, because I think scooters are a big one. I think so many children scoot in to school or to nursery, and some parents might be unsure about where is too risky for them, or like what speed and things like that. So breaking down little things about, for example, starting with a scooter might be really interesting for parents.
Yeah, that's really good points. Thank you, lovely ladies. Now, are you ready to play a game?
Always.
Yeah. I mean, are you sure? Because that was like
with a little woohoo. Woohoo.
Okay, that's much better. That's much better. Just checking. Okay, so obviously we are talking about risky play today, and I thought it would be fun to have a look at our own feelings and experiences with risk. Because I mean, we might seem like really normal, tame ladies, but we've led risky lives. And we're about to find out who has done what, basically. So for this game, there were 3 questions, all right? And like our episode last time, we've all answered them randomly, and we have to guess who has done what. So the first risky play question is, what is a risky activity you would never do? One of them were jump out of a plane like a skydive. Nope. Fair enough. Parkour and skiing. I would be a danger to everyone. Travelling at speed is not great for me. Right, so who is skydive, parkour, or skiing? Which one would you never do?
I think Lou is skiing.
Oh, see, I thought Lou was parkour because when we were talking about earlier about how we answer questions, Lou is a very notorious one-word answer gal.
That's true.
That is true.
I thought parkour might be you, Lou.
It's not me.
Oh, Julia, it must be you then. It's definitely not me.
Parkour.
Why would you never do parkour?
I must say I'm a little traumatised from meeting someone that said he jumped from a shipping container to another shipping container and knocked out his 2 front teeth. And I thought, that sounds horrendous. I will never be doing parkour. This is what this was. So you have put me right off.
My teeth are tingling thinking about
I know,
that.
I'm sorry to share that story, but that was true. And he was there for some parkour competition, and they all jump all over the place. And I thought, for me, that is not very thrilling. I don't think I'm getting any benefits, so it just sounds like a lot of risk.
Fair enough.
I just like saying parkour, though, so I will jump on a step and go, parkour.
Did you know the kids have started doing it at school now, even in reception?
No way.
Whenever they jump down a stair or something in the app, they're like parkour, and I'm like, you wish, babes, you wish.
Sounds like the children in reception are at the beginning of their parkour.
Yeah, all right, that's true.
They might actually be doing parkour for their level.
Yeah, they might be doing it better than me, and they're 3 years old, for goodness sake. So yeah, that's fair.
Get involved in that risky play, Shauna.
Oh, okay. Go on then, Lou. Talk about skiing. Why not?
I'm not very good at travelling at speed, really. I used to be really good at running, and actually I still probably am, but running's not really the problem. It's anything with like bikes, scooters. I would never go on a scooter.
Really?
Just feels a bit out of control.
Is it because your feet's not on the ground? Is that what it is?
I like to have my feet firmly on the ground.
Uh,
But skiing, there's too many elements involved. There's coordination needed, which I'm not great at. And then you're going down a slippery surface
literally.
really, really fast.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd much rather the hot chocolate.
Yeah. And that's waiting for you at the bottom. So
Yeah, and then you don't have to climb or anything.
I feel you. And also snow. You know how I feel about snow.
Oh yeah, since you don't really love snow,
I hate
makes sense
snow.
that you
No.
wouldn't like skiing.
Yeah, no.
So you end up in the snow quite a lot when you're learning.
Right. For me, it's skydiving.
I've completely forgotten about that one. That would have been
How could you?
Oh.
How could you forget about the most terrifying thing that anybody could ever do in their life? Jump out of a plane with nothing just to hold. Okay, fine. No.
Yeah.
But you have a parachute.
Yeah, but what if the parachute doesn't work?
But you have like a backup, don't you?
Do you?
Do you?
I think there's 2.
There's 2. Is there?
I think so.
Are you sure?
No.
Right. Exactly. Literally betting your life on.
Well, I mean, that's not true because I haven't done it. I haven't signed up for one not knowing if there were 2.
I don't know. It just does not. I think I would absolutely wet myself on the way, and I mean literally wet myself on the way down out of pure fear, or pass out and just miss the entire experience anyway. So I'd just wake up in a puddle of my own wee at the bottom, like, what happened? It just does not seem.
I don't reckon you could close your eyes, because aren't your eyes like forced open?
Oh, stop! Ah! You're forced
from
to watch your death.
From the wind.
Oh,
Oh no, you wear goggles, don't you? So
Yeah.
maybe a big head.
Yeah, and also you just don't look good. It's like, you know,
mean,
with your
it's
face
not a look,
flapping. It's not a
definitely.
look.
But I don't think you need to share the video.
Fair enough. No, it's just no. Would you jump out of a plane? Would you do it?
No.
Right, there you go. Actually, that actually leads really well on to our next question, which is, what is a risky activity you would love to do? So let's see what people would do. Okay, first one. I would love to do one of those massive zip lines or bungee jump things. Being attached by a rope is enough to convince me I won't die. Fair. Next one. I attempted recently to ride a bike. Well, a tandem bike. Didn't end too well. I would like to buy a tricycle and go from there.
Lou.
Oh my god! That is
First one,
okay.
Sean.
Yeah, and ironically, something you'd love to do is skydive or bungee jump, Julia. Why? We've just said how ridiculously terrifying it is.
That's your opinion. I think it sounds quite fun.
Oh, I think Julia's just like the riskiest one of us.
She's the rebel.
Rock and roll.
Yeah, literally rock and roll. Because okay, so I feel like there's a very big difference between skydive and bungee jump, because bungee jump you
That's
are
fair.
attached to something.
Doesn't mean it can't break.
Oh my god, stop!
What happens if they've
That's
got
a
the
risk.
cord the wrong length?
Yeah.
It's a bungee. It's flexible.
Yeah, it's meant to be flexible,
Oh, right,
but
yeah.
it could break, or the harness could break.
Oh my god,
That's
stop!
the risk. That's on the risk assessment.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah, it would
sweating
be on
talking
the
about it.
risk assessment.
Right, okay. Well, that's why I said like bungee jump or zip line, because you're attached. But zip lining, you know, when you do those, have you seen like on TikTok and
Yeah.
things, those massive ones where they
Yeah.
literally go for miles, and the views,
It's incredible.
it's incredible. And I think it would just feel like you're flying. And I love
think-
that
I
feeling.
mean, I'd like to be
Yeah.
a bird, but I don't really want to do a zip line.
Well,
That's a whole different question.
yeah, let's go on to you, Lou, because what you consider to be a risk is
It's a tandem bicycle. So
it's a
cute.
tandem bike.
So cute.
I never really learnt how to ride a bike when I was a child.
Right.
And I had a bike for a while, which brakes didn't really work. So the only way to stop was just to fall off it.
Oh.
So I spent a lot of my childhood quite bruised. And because I just didn't like the feeling of, maybe I'm just not very good at balancing. I don't really know. So recently I tried a tandem bike in Devon.
How did that go?
Well, really well, I thought, until I realised, obviously I wasn't doing any of the hard work because I was sitting on the back.
Oh,
So I was made to
One of
sit on the
those.
front. Oh my goodness. We ended up coming off the path and into push because I just couldn't balance, steer, pedal, all of those things, and apply the brakes. I couldn't do that, and they were shouting brake, brake, and I just couldn't remember where the brakes were.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry. Although it's really funny.
it's a bit
So,
funny.
so tricycle's the only way now, I think. for me.
Okay, you'd love to. Your risky activity you'd love to do out of the entire world. Skydive, bungee jump, zip. No, I want to
Tricycle for
trike.
me.
You do
That's
you,
okay,
babe.
That's your.
You do you.
Yes, it's
You're
risky
right.
for
It's
me.
risky for you. It sounds like it. Julia, let's not invite her to the next cycling holiday.
To our crazy holidays,
Yeah.
risky play holidays.
I
Live on
have
Earth
done
twice.
risky things, but that wasn't the question, was it?
Yeah.
All right.
that's
Okay,
true.
bonus question. What risky thing have you done?
Oh, is this for me now, or is
Yeah,
that the
right
next
now.
question?
If you're gonna
Oh.
if you're gonna put it that way, that's fine. You tell us. Come on then.
Well,
you
I've
show
walked
off.
across really high rope bridges in Nepal and places with
Wow.
massive drops
That's
with
risky.
2 backpacks on, like
Ooh.
massive backpacks. So
Not one,
no,
but
I
two.
had one on the front and one on the
Oh my
back, so I had to
gosh.
really balance, and I couldn't really see where I was going, so I just had to trust that the
Get you.
bridge was safe.
That's
That is
cracking.
risky.
Yeah.
Well
I
done.
love that. Get you. I'd love to do that. But that actually moves on rather nicely to our third out of 4 questions, by the way. There are 4. Didn't realise.
Oh.
I know.
Oh,
Bonus
I thought
question.
that was.
What risk have you overcome your fear of? Because I think that's also a really important part of risky play, isn't it? Like you said before, Lou, it's about that achievement of going, yes, I can do things, even when they're
Yeah.
hard. So let's see what we did. Number 1. I used to really be afraid of roller coasters, like full-on panic attacks. That was until I actually went on one. And that fear had totally gone and I actually love them. Number 2 is I'm not great with heights at all, although I have had to do this on my travels. So I guess when you need to do something, then mind over matter and trust kicks in. And number 3, public speaking or presenting. Ooh.
Mm.
Okay, what have we overcome? I feel like, Lou, you must be the heights one.
Yeah.
I know.
And then
I've
Shauna's the
forgotten
first
all
one.
the questions, so I've just actually answered that one. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
you
me.
did.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Why are you sorry? Overcoming heights is a really...
Yeah, that's hard.
That's a big challenge.
I don't think I've overcome it.
But you do it when you need to.
But I've done when you have. There's only one way to go, and you
Mm.
have to go that way. You have to just trust,
Mm.
and it took me a long time, but I got over that bridge, and then there was another one.
No,
So
no.
yeah, so I think sometimes it's not necessarily overcoming it. It's I wouldn't choose to do it. I wouldn't choose to go and seek it out again. Not like the person with the roller coaster.
Shauna.
That's me.
Yeah,
So
I thought it might be.
I wanted to put this because I think it's an interesting take on what risk is, because I had this, and I mean ingrained pure panic attack fear of roller coasters. And I mean, if I saw one, I was having a panic attack. And it lasted for years and years and years and years. And I'd never been on one. So I had this fear of something without actually even having a bad experience of it. It was just something that for me, for some reason, I just couldn't handle. And then I think it was when I was 16 or something, I finally took up the courage and was like, you just need to get on it and do it. And I was so cross at myself afterwards because it was so fun. And I was like, why have I wasted so many years being afraid of them? They are so fun. And then since then, I mean, literally, the fear has completely vanished. As soon as I went on one, it was like, boom, gone. And it was really strange. But it was that idea of the fear. It was scarier than the activity itself.
You build it up in your head.
Yeah. And it's just that's the power that sometimes fear can have on you. And that's why risky play is so important, because actually, if you just do it, it's like, oh, it's actually not that bad. It's just I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting one. But yeah, Julia, public speaking as a fear you've overcome. Tell us.
Oh, it's scary. I think that was always scary, the thought of speaking in front of lots of people. I think it just got to the point where I was like, well, I can't be doing this for the rest of my life. So I just started signing up to speak in front of people. Just had to keep doing it until kind of like worst case scenario is actually not that bad. Like worst case scenario, you're not very good and, you kind of trip over your words, or you say a lot of ers. And you're like, well, at the end of the day, people aren't going to be booing you off the stage potentially. So it's all okay in the end, and then you relax a little bit more. But I found that being more psychologically risky, I suppose, in terms of going up there and feeling really awful and traumatized from it.
Really vulnerable as well, isn't it? It's like putting yourself on a platter for people to judge. And I think you're a very good public speaker. I mean, you've been on this podcast several times, and I think you smash it, babes.
But I don't think it's the same. I think it was like more physical, standing up in front of lots of people. I think standing up is quite important, because sitting down, quite relaxed. Something about standing up in front of lots of people sat down feels very different, and I don't know why.
Yeah. Last question in our risky play game, which is actually my favourite. What is an everyday risk for you that isn't a risk to others? Okay, I'm loving this. Are you ready? Okay, one of them is, I love to discover new places and wander. I have a good sense of direction. That does not answer the question. So that's got to
Is that
be
Lou?
That's definitely Lou. You didn't answer the question.
I was just thinking, I don't even remember the question.
No.
What was the question again?
What is an everyday risk for you?
That isn't the risk, is it? Well,
Possibly.
Apparently gardening is a risk if you keep falling over.
yeah, I don't think I read the question right.
4 questions is one too many for
Probably
Lou.
just getting up in the morning is just a risk.
Everyday life.
Oh, that's so funny.
Oh, I'm so sorry, everybody.
It's all right, babes. That's why we love you. It's all good. It's brilliant. Right, Lou. You need to find out which one's for me and which one's for
Okay,
Julia.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
For one of us, an everyday risk is driving. For the other, it's having a piece of toast.
This is really hard. I'm going to say driving, Julia. Toast, Shana.
Ding, 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 ding.
Those 2 things are very different.
Yeah, see, driving, I could see why. But come on, Julia, why is driving an everyday risk for you?
Well, I feel like it's risky because you can't control everyone else.
That's a good point.
So I always feel like, oh, this is a bit risky because, what if someone is, I don't know, looking at something out their window or on their phone? I'm like, ooh.
See, I thought it was you saying you're a terrible driver. Like, everyday risk for you is driving because you're just bad at it. You just...
I try to be super safe, but you can't control everyone else being super safe.
That's true.
Imagine what would happen if Shana drove and ate toast.
See? Risky stuff.
I mean, do we really want to paint that picture? Because, I mean, you'll know why a piece of toast is an everyday risk for me. You might be able to eat toast, okay, guys? But for me,
Is it the sound?
I am not doing a sound. That is disgusting.
Oh no!
How-
Is it the sound that you don't like? Is it a risk?
Yeah, what's the risk?
The risk is I might poop my pants. That's the risk. I've got celiac disease. I'm not having toast.
Oh.
See, we did not know this. We were like, what's going on? It's the risk it's going to get burned. What's happening?
No, I can cook a piece of toast. I'm a good cook. I can cook a piece of toast. I'm not worried about the toast. I'm worried about me, all right? I don't know what's going to happen as soon as that thing enters my mouth.
I see,
Okay.
it's risky.
And it's risky for everybody else who lives with me because let's just say they're not allowed, they can't go near the bathroom. All right. If I even make it that far. Let's just, no. Toast is,
That's not what I thought.
it's just not worth it. Although I say that,
Yeah,
I have had a cheeky KFC once in a while.
risky.
Yeah, I know. But I did a little risk-benefit assessment in my head, okay? And I knew I was going to be home alone, and I really like the taste. So I was like, you know what? Fine. If I'm on the toilet all night, it's worth it. Don't judge me, people. I did the assessment in my head. I took that risk.
I don't think we can end it better than that.
Yeah. What a way to end the show. Thank you so much for coming, you gorgeous ladies. I've learnt so much about you. You've learnt too much about me. That's fine. Lovely to see you. And I look forward to our next one where hopefully there's less poop talk involved.
Bye. It's lovely to see you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to that. I am really sorry. I have no idea how it ended on that note. You can tell that we were tired. Let's just say that. But they are so much fun. I hope you learned a lot as well. And don't worry, everything that we talked about is going to be in the episode description, and we'll send you links to more resources and to more information if you want to learn about how to encourage risky play in your settings or in your home if you're a parent. So thank you so much for listening. Hope you had fun. And we will see you next time. Bye.
So that's it from today's episode. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you really enjoyed it. If you would like to get involved or would like to know more, come and find us on our social media sites. We have a Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, and TikTok account. All of the details will be in the description. And whatever you're doing, I hope you have a great day today.